Greetings, fellow traditionalist Catholics. This is Sergio Becerra II, and welcome back to my channel. So, as we all know, Antipope Leo XIV has come out against the death penalty. Well, he isn't the first to be against the death penalty and to condemn it. His predecessor, that would be Antipope Francis, as we all know, in 2020 came out with an encyclical called Fratelli Tutti, which completely condemns the death penalty and has urged all Christians to come out against it. So, as we all know, in the past, within the last few months since Leo XIV was elected, apparently he has come out and said anyone that is against abortion and is in favor of the death penalty is in fact not pro-life. Well, here's the thing that proves that not only he not only is he not the true pope, but also not a true Catholic, because uh, the dogmatic teachings of the Church have said that it is okay to support the death penalty. In fact, there are some verses within the Bible that do confirm that it is okay to be okay and supportive of the death penalty, but it all right to use the death penalty for various reasons, depending on which crimes that are committed, such as murder. Uh, I don't have my Bible on me. I know there's a lot of verses, and I don't want to sound like I'm being lazy when it comes to reading the Bible or having to remember the verses in my head by heart, not being able to remember the verses by heart. So I found the verses online, and there are quite a number. So here's one right here. Now, some of these verses do go back. Most of them go back to the Old Testament. So we'll go to the first one. That will be Exodus 21 verse 12. It says, "Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death." So therefore, so what I just read right now, Exodus 21:12, "Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death." Therefore, if a person takes the life of another person, which is murder, therefore it is permissible to put someone to death. That's one. There are other verses regarding the death penalty. Kidnapping is another one. Exodus 21:16. "Whoever steals a man and sells him, and everyone found in possession of him shall be put to death." So if you kidnap someone, it is permissible to be put to death. But in this day and age, you don't really put someone to death for kidnapping. Mainly, just be put in prison. As we already know, another one that will be when it comes to homosexuality, of course. Also, well, not Exodus, but okay. Well, here's Levitic for Levitic. I'm sorry, Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10. This is on adultery. "If a man commits adultery with the wife of his neighbor, both the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death." So if you commit adultery, you're going to be put to death, as we already know in the New Testament when Jesus sees Mary Magdalene and she's about to be stoned to death because she was caught in the act of adultery. And then, of course, that one line that we know: "He who is without sin cast the cast the first stone," which, of course, a lot of people drop their own stones because they too have sinned. And here's a let's see, prostitution and rape. This is in. I always have a hard time pronouncing this. Deuteronomy chapter 13, verse 5. Okay. But that prophet or that dreamer of dreams shall be put to death because he has taught rebellion. Oh, wait a minute. I think that's the wrong one. Where is it? You know. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong one. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 24. My apologies. I read the wrong. Okay, here we go. Then you shall bring them both out of the gate of that city, and you shall stone them to death with stones, the young woman, because she did not cry for help, though she was in the city, and the man, because he violated his neighbor's wife. So you shall purge the evil from your midst. So if you commit prostitution, or if you engage in, or if you commit rape, then you are to be put to death. Well, in this day and age, as we all know, you can go to prison for prostitution, but when it comes to rape, on the other hand, yeah, you could be thrown in prison for that, um, but I don't think you'll get the death penalty for it. I mean, you would have to commit like a real serious case, like multiple. You would have to commit like rape like multiple times, like many times, like a serial rapist, like many times, in order to be put to death. I doubt that you probably be sent to prison for life in this day and age, is what I'm trying to say. If you were to commit rape, like it's either once or multiple times, you're most likely going to be put away for life in prison. But however, there is one part in the Bible which we see God be merciful. However, God often showed mercy when the death penalty was due. David committed adultery and murder, yet God did not demand his life be taken. And here we have right here 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 through 5. In the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his servants with him, and all Israel, and they ravaged the Ammon, Ammon, Ammonites and besieged Rabbah. But David remained at Jerusalem. It, it happened late one afternoon when David arose from his couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house that he saw from the roof a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. And David sent and inquired about the woman, and one said, "It is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite." So David sent messages and took her, and she came to him, and he lay with her. Now she has been purifying herself from her uncleanness. Then she returned to her house, and the woman conceived, and she sent and told David, "I am pregnant." Okay, and now we have 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 13. David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." And Nathan said to David, "The Lord also has put away your sin. You shall not die." Okay, so those 2 verses I just read involving David taking committing adultery, and of course what I just read right now, uh, in which David will not be put to death, and which was 2 Samuel 12, verse 13. Okay, ultimately, every sin we commit should result in the death penalty because the wage of sin is death. Thankfully, God demonstrates his love for us in not condemning us. Romans 5:8. But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So, uh, I'm sorry. So it is okay for the faithful to be supportive of the death penalty. Now, I'm supportive of the death penalty myself. Sorry, but okay, getting ready for the next part. So it is okay for the faithful to be supportive of the death penalty. I am supportive of the death penalty, but it does not make me uh, being a, it does not. I am supportive of the death penalty, but doesn't mean I am not pro-life. I know when to respect life, especially life being developed in the womb. That's life. But when you take things at a logical point, I think which Leo the 14th doesn't get, when someone takes the life of another person, whether at random or at someone in particular, and then when you're caught for doing something which is not only against the commandments of God but uh, nature itself, basically, it's put in simple words. It's about eliminating a problem. Who started what, and then the person that caused the problem, which is taking another person's life, is put to death. Therefore, the problem is eliminated. So we have had popes in the past that are supportive of the death penalty. As a matter of fact, Pope Leo X, a true pope, by the way, who condemned the teachings of Martin Luther, who was once a Catholic Augustinian monk, like Leo the 14th, who was, of course, an Augustinian monk, but for Luther, who was once an Augustinian monk, rebelled against Rome, therefore starting a false church. In which, in Luther's own case, not just Luther, but another heretic, John Huss, who was around 100 years before Luther's time, who was like the pre-Protestant before Luther, because due to the fact he wanted to make changes in the church, which resulted in Huss being put to death. And Luther, for both Huss and Luther, they were saying it is not okay to put someone to death, especially heretics that are handled by the secular authorities. But the Roman Church has said it is okay to put someone to death on any crime in particular, like murder, and especially heresy. Any heresy you commit against the church, which only the secular authorities should handle, not the church. But for Francis and Leo the 14th, they're pretty much against it. This proves that they're not only that both of them are not the real popes, but apostate, a couple of apostates and heretics. Not only that, both of them are not Catholic. They're both anti-Catholic. I don't. For Leo the 14th's case, probably Francis as well. Probably neither one of them has ever read the Bible, and of course doesn't believe in the dogmas. Probably never. They both probably never believed in the Bible either. Just like I said right now, I'm pretty sure they never have read the Bible. Well, even if they read the Bible, which of course is something that a Catholic should be reading, even if they did read the Bible, is what I'm trying to point out here, they probably don't believe in it. They don't believe in the dogmas either. In which case, Pope Leo XIII has said anyone that does not accept dogma or is against any dogma, they're outside the church. As a matter of fact, uh, I am right here on my phone. Here's a tweet posted none other than the false traditionalist Taylor Marshall. Yeah, even though I follow him on X/Twitter, but when it came to Leo XIV and the death penalty, he writes here and then lists the popes that have been supportive. The death penalty was explicitly supported by, here's the list of popes: Pope Innocent I, Pope Innocent III, Pope Paul III, Pope Julius III, Pope Paul IV, Pope St. Pius V, Pope Sixtus V, Pope Clement VIII, Pope Pius IX, Pope Leo XIII, Pope St. Pius X, and Pope Pius XII. Where are all these popes not pro-life? But then he forgets to mention Leo X because, as I had mentioned, Leo X said it was okay for the faithful of the Catholic faith to be supportive of the death penalty, but wrote a document against Luther's teachings about the death penalty because Luther and Huss were saying there should be no reason to put someone to death for whatever crime, including heresy, by the secular authorities. Yeah, but Marshall forgets to mention Leo X because I don't think he even knows, but Leo X was one of those that is of course supportive of the death penalty. But as I have said, the 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 dogmatic teachings of the church do say it is okay to be supportive of the death penalty on various crimes, and it should be handled by the secular authorities. So if you commit murder, you are put to death. That's basically it there. But when it comes to people like Taylor Marshall and other false traditionalists, don't listen to them because they're leading you astray from the real faith to the heretical Vatican II sect. Now, as for Antipope Francis, who agrees with everything that Luther has said, of course would agree that of course he would agree that the death penalty is wrong. But as we've seen already in the past, he is against Catholics trying to convert people to Catholicism, and we've seen it. But he's been supportive of Luther's justification and his teachings. That just proves that Antipope Francis is a Vatican II apostate and heretical antipope, a notorious heretic, and not a true Catholic. That same would go with Antipope Leo XIV. So I get there's no so everything that both Leo XIV and Francis have said are completely wrong. I apologize for trying to go through going through the some of these Bible verses that I'm looking through my phone. I know I don't have the Bible with me right now. I'm not trying to be lazy by not combing through a lot of different verses and books and all that. Nor am I lacking nor am I lacking in biblical studies or trying to remember verses in my head by heart. I mean, it's a lot, but uh, I mean, I'm just only using my phone as the only way. For the meantime, make it a little easier for myself. But it is okay for us Catholics to be supportive of the death penalty. Um, there's nothing wrong about the death penalty. As I've said, in a logical point of view, when another person takes another person's life and is put to death for it, we are eliminating a problem. That's what I'm trying to point out here. Now, I'm not the only one saying this, but Brother Peter Diamond of Vatican Catholic, now he too has talked about this. In fact, he did a video 5 years ago talking about Francis's encyclical Fratelli Tutti, talk about being against the death penalty, and Francis purposely changed the catechism, saying that it is wrong for the faithful to be supportive of the death penalty, and therefore the death penalty ought to be abolished. So, in other words, what Francis is trying to say, if you commit a heinous crime that results you forfeiting your life, you ought to be not put to death, but put away in prison for life. Yeah, but when it comes to serious crimes, even if it's murder or even worse, then it is reasonable, even logical, to put someone to death. Um, I forget who online said it. It's kind of like somewhat of a contradiction to what Pius XII may have said, somewhat of the opposite. I forget what. Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure it has to do if you're Catholic but you're somehow supportive of abortion, that then you're not really Catholic. So Leo the 14th is wrong by saying if you're against abortion but favor the death penalty, then you're not considered pro-life. Well, he's wrong about it, if you're but if you call yourself a Catholic but somehow be pro-abortion, therefore pro-terminating of an unborn child, then you're definitely not a Catholic. But for him to say you're not Catholic by being I'm sorry, for someone to say that you're Catholic but somehow being for the death penalty, someone makes you not pro-life, which is not true. In fact, this goes against the dogmas, and of course Leo the 13th, Leo number 13, a true pope. Like I quoted from him, if you do not accept and reject one dogma, then you are definitely outside the church. That is what both Francis and Leo the 14th are. I'm not the one, so it's not just Leo the 10th that condemns the teachings and the actions of Martin Luther, but Saint Robert Bellarmine has also said the exact same thing when it comes to heresy and the death penalty. And I'm pretty sure murder too, as well. I can't remember. I know Vatican Catholic has an article on it on their website. So it is okay for the faithful, especially myself, if you are Catholic, it is okay to support the death penalty. It is okay to be supportive of the death penalty, and it should only be handled by secular authorities, depending on what crime you commit. Now, even though we live in a modern age, let me get out of this. I know we live in a modern age, but most things don't need to involve the death penalty, like kidnapping or rape. But when it comes to taking another person's life, that is okay. They ought to be put to death. So if you commit murder, it is okay to put that person to death. And as we already know, like right now, as uh, that occurred a month ago with the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, we know that his killer is already now facing the death penalty, and his public defender is doing everything she can. It's a female public defender, by the way, is trying to get the death penalty off the table and only give Kirk's killer life in prison. Well, he took out apparently Charlie Kirk's killer took his life because he did not agree with everything he said. Did this out of hate. So now it is all right to put someone to death. We're we're gonna put Charlie Kirk's killer to death. I am supportive of putting Charlie Kirk's killer to death. Therefore, he deserves to have his life forfeited. So there is nothing wrong about being pro death penalty. But when it comes to being pro life, I know when to respect the life. We all know when to respect the life, especially a life being developed in the mother's womb. That needs to be respected. Life, too. Even life that is like going on within an average person, fully grown average person that is living and moving on with their lives need to be respected, knowing they have not done anything wrong. Just respect another person's life. But I don't want nobody to take my words out of context. But when you take another person's life, then that's a different thing. So Leo the 14th is wrong. Francis is also wrong. They are both heretics, not true popes, and they're not really Catholic. They don't believe in the scriptures. They don't believe in the dogmas. Plain and simple. So Leo the 14th doesn't even know what he's even saying. And as for the list of popes that I had just mentioned from Taylor Marshall's tweet, we've seen those are the list of popes that have been supportive of the death penalty, which is, of course, according to the dogmas of the church, even though he didn't even mention Leo X because he pushed back on Luther's teachings and his arguments. So tell me what you all think. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell beside it, and comment below and tell me what you think. All right. Uh, this wraps it up for now. Hope to see you next time. Take care now. Bye.